So, how should we manage test data? For feature testing, test data is just as important as test cases and test code. How do we handle both product data and test case data? Are there strategies we can use to avoid brittle dependencies? In this talk, we'll explore multiple ways to handle both product data and test case data. Unfortunately, there's no universal or perfect solution to the test data problem, but you can avoid nightmares by picking strategies that work well for your needs. Let's start with product data. As previously stated, product data is any live data in the product or system under test. In simplest terms, it's everything in the database. Examples could include user accounts, admin settings, product customizations, any records or files created by the user. And in our loan app, specifically, they'd be things like user accounts, loan products, completed applications, and any of that behind the scenes bank data. Data must be present in the product as a prerequisite for most testing. There are two primary ways to get that data into the system. On one hand, you can set the data up before running your tests. This would be called static data preparation. For example, the loan web app could be set up with a set of pre-registered users and a collection of loan types. Test cases, whether they are manual or automated, can presume that this static data is already in the system and simply reference it. Static data preparation is a good strategy for complicated data or for data that's slow to create dynamically. For example, user accounts usually need some sort of email verification. So it might be easier for automated tests to simply use a set of pre-registered users than trying to go through that whole cycle every single test. Tests will run faster if they can simply reference existing data instead of creating new data each time. However, static data must be maintained. Any changes to static data could impact tests. It can also become stale over time, like when data formats are changed or if the data has timestamps in it. On the other hand, you could try to set up your data during test execution. This would be dynamic data creation. In the example loan test, the loan application document is dynamically created. It does not reference any existing loan application. It creates a new one. Dynamically created records avoid the brittleness of hard references to static data. They can also be used exclusively by the current test case, protecting them from interruptions by other test cases. The main downside of dynamic creation is the execution time. It is slower because you got to do it. And also, dynamically created data is essentially disposable. So at some point, you're going to need to clean that up. Which strategy is best? Honestly, you're probably going to need both strategies. Data that is slow or considered immutable should probably use static data prep, while data that is quick and easy should use dynamic prep. So, in terms of dynamic data preparation, how do you do that? That's going to depend on your test case and on your product. So it's very, very specific to the context. But static data prep does have a few common strategies that we can look at together. The simplest data prep strategy is manual configuration. Fun, right? Yeah. It's exactly what it sounds like. Testers log into the system and manually create whatever records they need. They could be setting up users, creating product configs, what have you. The nice thing is it's low tech. Anybody can do this. Downside, it's slow, doesn't really scale. Every time you have to make changes, somebody got to go in there and do it themselves. So there's a time tax. Also, for manually configured systems, over time, they tend to decay, right? Things fall out of sync, things fall out of relevance, they're no longer fresh, things can come into disrepair, and so maintenance becomes a hassle. So what do we see whenever we have a problem with manual things? We automate it, right? Wow. So you can also have, automated mechanisms for handling your configuration. Rather than manually setting it up, you can Use automated tools to either generate data that you need or to scrub data from production and copy it over. You could make your own tools. You could use libraries. You could even use configuration management tools like Chef or Puppet for certain needs. If you're generating your own data, you can do it deterministically or randomly, whatever fits. The main benefit of this is that you can get this data anytime. Whether you generate it or you scrub it, you push a button and it goes. You also have the ability to get fresh data so that if your data is time sensitive, you can get more up-to-date data that's not expired. Downside of this, though, is that like with any kind of automation, it's no free lunch. You've got to get the tools, you've got to get the skills, you've got to put the development into it.